here's your apps. So the first one is called Limit Game Time Now. Limit Game Time Now lets you set the length of time for a play app, and when that time is up, a message will come up on the screen. I'm not quite sure what it says, but something happens on the screen to tell the kid that it's time to stop. He can make that message go away, but it'll come right back again and keep coming back until you type in the password. So it will annoy him to death. Timer for YouTube is a time, you can actually set it to shut down YouTube after a certain amount of time. Seriously. Worth the cost of admission. Right, so you can set it so that she can play, or he can play the YouTube video for a minute, and then it shuts down. Too bad, so sad, shuts down. I like that one's even better because it just shuts it down. The other one just annoys the kid to death, right? But that's okay. And they're both free.
Second one is only for YouTube, though, right?
The second one is only for YouTube. It's what it says, timer for YouTube. Timer for YouTube. The first one will shut down any game. Well, it won't shut it down. It will just flash a notice that tells the kid he's supposed to get off now. All right, so I'm going to hand this over to Katie, who's going to walk you through the short way. She's the short way expert. I'm the long way expert. I think that I've given you enough information so that if you're working with, if you're a parent, you're working with professionals, a behavior consultant, an occupational therapist, whatever, you ought to be able to go to them with that information and work together as a team to design a program so that the long way will work. I think that the short way is more technically challenging, and I think Katie will probably tell you that she's not going to be able to give you everything you need to know to be able to implement the short way on your own because, like I said, it's more technically challenging. Nonetheless, if you have questions about the long way, to a limited extent, I'm willing to answer them by email, but honestly, you have to appreciate that I can't answer really specific questions about kids that I've never met or young people who I've never met without meeting them, and I don't have time to do that. So I'll do the best I can if you have questions as you work your way through the long way. But my ability to be your private consultant is limited by my own time constraints and the fact that I've never met the person you're trying to train. And I think Katie will probably tell you a similar thing about the short way. Nonetheless, I'm going to shut up and give it to her and let her walk you through this. Go for it.
Thanks.
I'll be back.
All right. So my name's Katie Rinald, as Pat said. I'm a behavior consultant. So that's my main job. So what I'll talk about, as Pat has been telling you, is for today we called it the short way. What it's called, if you're kind of Googling or in the research, is rapid toilet training. So that's sort of the technical name for it. And you will learn in a few moments why it's rapid. So the first study on rapid toilet training was published in 1971. So it's been around a while. And since then, the majority of toilet training studies in the behavior analytic sort of literature have all come from this first study by Azrin and Fox. So I'm going to refer to that a little bit. So variations of RTT and RTT itself have been successful with a wide group of populations, so people with pretty serious special needs up to typically developing children. And the book that you actually see in the picture there is a book that Azrin and Fox put together that's their method designed for sort of typically developing little children. And it was, wildly successful with that population as well. So when Pat talked this morning about how toilet training is about good instruction applies to everybody. So from a little typically developing kid to a 40-year-old man with Down syndrome, good instruction is needed for everybody in toilet training. It's a really complicated thing. So I think this is the most mind-blowing fact I've maybe ever encountered. So get ready for this. This is why I wanted to study toilet training. So the Azrin and Fox study included 9 adult males with profound intellectual disabilities. So this was 1971. Institutionalized, we were still in the institutionalization world then, males with profound intellectual disabilities. They were toilet trained in 4 days, a mean of 4 days. Isn't that amazing? All 9 who participated in the study. So I think things like this are one of the reasons Pat calls this toilet training is for everybody. It's never too late. Truly, adult males, so they've been using diapers their entire lives, right? We're toilet trained in 4 days. You guys look like you're doubting out there, kind of, okay, sell me on it, lady. Well, you'll see. So it's a pretty unbelievable fact. And Azrin and Fox were very good behavior analysts. They really knew what they were doing. So, but yeah, I can say since then there were many studies that replicated their methods that have continued to be successful with little kids, older people, wide range of disabilities. It's a very sound procedure. It seems sort of like a really well-kept secret in the behavior analysis world. It's sort of one of our special things that we're able to do. It's fireworks, very exciting. So now I'll tell you a little bit about the study that Pat and I did for my master's thesis. So as I mentioned, it's a version of rapid toilet training. What we did was taught 5 parents to toilet train their children using a workshop format. So in order to do that, we worked a lot on what a good workshop looks like, where people are going to do their best learning. So we made sure that during the workshop, parents were doing things like role playing with me, so I'd pretend to be the child, and they'd move me to the toilet, and all sorts of kind of crazy things like that. They learned really about why they were doing it, so the technical reasons it would work, each part of the procedure, that sort of thing. So it was a hard work workshop. They attended for a full day. So just to tell you a little bit about the people who were in the study. So there were 3 children with autism, 1 with Down syndrome, and 1 with sort of a general intellectual disability. They ranged in age from about 3 to 6. And they had what I'll call a mixed toilet training history. So 2 had been trying for over a year, 1 had tried a little bit, the other 2 had never tried at all. So those were the youngest kids in the study. And another important thing to note is, remember we talked about prerequisites earlier today, and Pat was saying how if you're waiting for prerequisites, you could be waiting forever. So the kids that were in our study had very few of those prerequisites. None of them were uncomfortable in a diaper. They were all happy to pee and poop in their diaper all day long. They didn't say they needed to go. They didn't seem interested in the toilet. None of those sort of things that you'd hear kids should have as a prerequisite. So that's another important point. So in the study, the parents did all the actual hands-on toilet training. All I did was give them a workshop and then support them over the phone as they implemented it. So I wouldn't be telling you about this if it wasn't successful, so it was. So of the participants, remember there were 5, 3 were totally toilet trained, including the self-initiation part within 5 days. So that was a really good outcome. 1 child took 2 weeks to start the initiating part. So 4 out of 5 learned initiation. 1 didn't achieve initiation, but was totally accident-free by the time of what we called follow-up, so a month later. So essentially, all 5 kids were toilet trained completely by their parents. So pretty good outcome. And like Pat was talking about, the parents did say, whoa, that was hard work, harder work than we could have imagined. We truly had to cancel everything we were doing for a couple days. So I'm just trying to ease you into the process here. It truly is a lot of work. So to move on, like we've been saying, one little disclaimer about rapid toilet training is the way that Pat's slides this morning taught you everything you need to know to go implement the long way. I won't be able to teach you everything you need to know about rapid toilet training because it's a pretty technical procedure. It's very involved. I highly recommend you have some support from somebody who's done this before, so someone who kind of specializes in toilet training. So now let's get into it. I'll talk about the real prerequisite. So somebody asked about this morning, so I'm happy to be going back to it now. So 2 very important things that the child truly must be able to do. One is they demonstrate the ability to approach the toilet independently. It doesn't mean they want to, just that they can physically walk and move to the toilet. So on this definition, yeah, most 2-year-olds are ready to be toilet trained. They could get up and walk to the toilet, that's okay. The second part, so you don't need evidence that they want to, just that they can, is that, this is where it's gonna get a little crazy. They'll sit on the toilet for 30 minutes. That being said, no eye rolling, I'm gonna tell you how I do it. There are many what we call reinforcers or reward items available just for sitting, and you can make the toilet seat nice and cushy and soft. That's totally fine too. I'll talk a little bit more about how that works in a little bit. But yeah, very important to consider that if your child can't do these things, it doesn't mean they're not ready to get toilet trained. It just means you need to work on these prerequisites first. So for some families, I've designed programs where for 2 weeks, the child receives big reinforcers just for going and sitting on the toilet for progressively longer intervals. And again, they can be playing their iPad on the toilet, they can be watching TV, anything like that. People are looking a little less eye-rolly, so that's good. So I'll explain a little bit more again as I go, but so far I just need you to go with me here. So yeah, just because they can't sit doesn't mean you can't do this. Okay, so Pat talked about the items that you need, so you'll see some big similarities in this part. So one is that you need highly motivating reward items for the trainee. So big time reinforcers. So a couple things I've used. I've worked with some kids who are really resistant to training. This one little boy recently, he got a whole Lego set every time he peed. Can you imagine? It was very expensive, but he was very resistant to training, and he got trained in 2 days, so it worked. So he got, a huge box of like those, like a plane, like a Lego City guy that are very cool right now, or a little Lego Star Wars thing. And we faded it out very similarly to how Pat talked about this morning. So that's possible, but it's really important that the rewards are motivating, and this is something that Pat's emphasized a lot. Definitely the same thing in this case. And that's another thing, even if you're going it alone in toilet training, there are behavior analysts who've dedicated careers to being really good at assessing reinforcers, making sure that the child will indeed be motivated for that item, that it'll indeed reinforce behavior and help them to be better. So you could consider asking your behavior consultant or hiring somebody just to perform reinforcer assessments. Say, what are the best things my child will work for? So that's a huge possibility because you cannot toilet train without really good reinforcers. So the next part, now this is different to the rapid toilet training, it's more unique. The child does need to sit for up to 30 minutes at a time, so you need activities that he or she likes to do that can be done while sitting. It's really important that they're not more reinforcing than what you're gonna give them when they actually pee or poo, right? Those have to be really good. So if your kid's a big iPad kid, you probably can't play the iPad while they're sitting. But if iPad's second tier to say Lego, bouncy balls, chocolate milk, whatever, fine, he can play the iPad while he's sitting, if he'll throw that iPad down the river when you hand him a chocolate milk, right? So a hierarchy of reinforcers is really important here too. So that's something I spend quite a bit of time working on with families before we even get started, is just arranging which and where. And it's also something that can change throughout the scope of the intervention. On day one, the iPad might be great, and then he's had it all day. So on day two, it's not so good anymore. We need something else. So that's why we talk about having a wide breadth of things that are potential reinforcers for the child. So another thing you'll need is underwear or shorts in the trainee's size, many pairs. There's likely to be accidents. Lots, and this is another important part of this, favorite drinks and salty snacks that will induce drinking. So drinking a lot is a really important part of rapid toilet training, and we'll get to that in a moment. And also, most kids like a soft toilet seat insert. I'm partial to those ones that are very squishy. They almost feel like they've got air in them, but not quite. I don't know if anyone knows what I'm talking about. And I've trained kids just on toilets. I've trained kids just on potties. I'm with Pat in that toilets are best if you can, but I'm not totally opposed to the potty, especially because This is such an intensive intervention. It's going to take over your days for quite a while. A lot of people just find it more doable if they can do it in the living room and sit on their couch, as opposed to hanging out in the bathroom with the child. So it's not the end of the world. There are other reasons the potty might be a good idea. If your child's had serious problems with the toilet, scared of flushing, scared of the bathroom, anything like that, let's get to that later. Let's get them trained on the potty now. And one thing that I was thinking of inventing, and then somebody beat me to the patent, I wasn't really going to invent it, but is potty seats that you can pop a seat for the toilet out of. Do you know what I'm talking about? They make potty seats that have a removable seat that can then go on the toilet. Those are nice for transitioning from the potty to the toilet later. They kind of take a step away for you, so that's great. So I'm not totally opposed to the potty. Something I would talk to families about in the assessment, and we'd make that decision on what would be the best for the child. A footstool, definitely, I also recommend that. Pat talked about that too. The child should have their feet on something. Dangling feet are not good. We've talked a little bit about the bearing down that goes into bowel movements and that sort of thing. Very important that they're just as comfortable as they can possibly be. A timer and data sheets are also needed. Timing is a pretty important part of this. And a big thing is rewards for yourself. It's really hard work. I can't emphasize that enough. So food you really like, if you're the trainer, wine, chocolate, whatever will get you through the day. Music that you like, anything to just make it a more pleasant experience. I had one mom burn candles in the corner of the bathroom just to make it a little nicer for herself, whatever gets you through the day. And I'd highly recommend 2 people do this together. It works really well when I have families who have behavioral interventionists, so they're doing kind of an at-home ABA program, something like that, so that they can do it together with the parent. So when the BI comes on shift, they'll take it for that couple hours, then the parent will go. There's breaks built in for people, because truly it's a 9 to 5 kind of pursuit. Okay, so to set up, any of the items that you're going to give the child for sitting on the toilet. So remember I talked about they could have things like look at books, watch TV, play the iPad while they're sitting. They need to go into the bathroom or wherever you're going to be training. If you decided to train on a potty in the living room, everything needs to be right there. There's no moving around, as little as possible, especially on day 1. You really have to have everything you need right at your fingertips. So food, drinks, your phone, laptop, even cleaning supplies for accidents, running down to the basement to grab the cleaning supplies. You could miss the next accident. Things like that can happen and really derail you. So the preparation's very important. Change of clothes for the child, change of clothes for yourself even. You can get a little accident on yourself. It's an occupational hazard. A comfy spot for the instructor to sit is really important too. If you're just planning to sit on the bathroom floor all day, don't do it. I can't, so I like to take couch cushions, that's my method, but anything that'll make you more comfortable in the bathroom is great too. And covering up your kind of carpets and couches nearby is another really good strategy. You want to be sure you're not going to damage the house and worry about it. Like, it can stress you out if you know pee is kind of festering on the living room carpet while you're trying to focus on toilet training, so the more coverage you've got on that sort of thing, the better too. Okay.